our bodies are built to love lovemaking. And if we're not creating babies, the sexual energy is creating subtle bodies. So feeling the tingle, that sweet magnetism of sexual energy, if it's not just building a relationship with another person, it builds the subtle bodies. And if meditation, just your general meditation every day, doesn't have quality of sometimes masturbating and sometimes having somebody make exquisite love to you, like being held, being touched, being loved, then you're not really meditating. The electricity in the sexual centers and that can flow everywhere in the body and many levels is an intrinsic part of being healthy in meditation. So that it's strange that it's this secret that meditation can feel like a party. And I go through cycles where I'll have a groove where I'm just like, yeah, I know how to meditate. I'm so zen. I'm like a surfer. And other times when I'm just completely perplexed, like, how do I meditate for the person I am today?
Hey y'all, I am so excited and feeling so blessed to be having this conversation with my beautiful, beautiful new friend, Lorin Roche today. He is somebody that I have admired, without exaggeration, for years. I first encountered his book, one of his books, the Radiance Sutras, shortly after it was published, so several years ago. And I judge a person's spiritual acumen not by so much what they say, but how they make somebody feel. And as soon as I sat down with this book, it immediately connected me to something far larger than myself, something transcendent, a word that he might use is Shakti energy, and transported me into this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. And so I've been a fan of him and his energy for a very, very, very long time. And Lorin has the good stuff. He has been practicing meditation since he was 18 years old. He got put into a study while he was a student in California, and then it became largely the focus of his life. So besides being an author, he teaches what he calls instinctive meditation, which is this idea that there are many, many right ways to meditate, and we are all gifted in it. We just have to find our own path. You hear me say things very similar on this channel. So I'm very much in alignment with them. He has his PhD from the University of California at Irvine, exploring in his dissertation the language meditators use to describe their experiences and how they map their inner worlds through that language. And a little bit about this book, The Radiance Sutras. It is an interpretation of a classical Indian tantric text that comes from, think about 500, 600 AD, called the Vijnana, and it describes 112 different ways to meditate in the conversation between the divine masculine and the feminine. And what I think is so beautiful about this book is Lorin is very good with Sanskrit, but instead of just doing a literal translation, word for word or line for line of each of these sutras, he instead would chant it and meditate with it and dance with it, sometimes very physically, and then write a poem based on what energy and insights he gained through meditating with each sutra. So it isn't a word for word literal translation. I've read those, tend to not be very exciting, but instead his are vibrant and juicy and alive. And so much of his views are in alignment with what I believe and what I share here with you guys. So I'm so stoked to have him here today. And just to kick us off, I am going to read one of the sutras here. And since we talk a lot about sex and sexuality on this channel and using it for spiritual growth, we're going to start with one of those. Sutra 45. As the fires build in sexual joy, enter the blessed place between the legs. Embrace the holy energies shimmering there. Follow the rising flow undulating throughout the spine, shivering with pleasure. As the fire intensifies and flashes upwards, suspend the breath for a moment, throw your whole self in. Become brilliance in your bodily form, in union with primordial bliss. So damn beautiful. So Lorin, thank you for being here in this conversation. I'm so pleased to share some space and time with you today, my dear man.
Yeah, so good it's so good to be with you. What fun. Let's have fun. So Yeah, it was so wild in retrospect. I was in this lab experiment where they paid me to sit in a pitch black, silent room for 3 hours a day for a couple of weeks. They were just measuring my brainwave. And as a control subject, I had no idea what the study was about and no instructions. I just hung out there in pitch black looking around. And since there was nothing to do and they're paying me good money to sit there, I sort of made friends with the blackness and the silence and the space. After the lab experiment was over, and I'd had a couple of weeks of being drenched in this the complete rebooting of my system from sitting in pitch black for hours a day. Then I met the Vijnana Bhairav, a woman who worked in the lab, read a couple of verses, and I recognized that whoever wrote that, they knew that experience that I had of merging with space and being this complete reboot of the human nervous system and all the senses. So I fell in love with that text. It became my guide. I explored yoga practices and Tai Chi and classical meditation practices. And those work beautifully. And the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, it would just even reading a couple of lines would enrich my experience of meditation. It helps to be alert to the delights of what we're experiencing here. Because in meditation, we're experiencing the flow and rhythm of prana shakti. And many of the essential meditation practices used the world over are ways of being in love with how life is continually renewing itself. Like breathing, for example, is a flow of divine energies every breath, where we'll breathe in and the oxygen and substances are absorbed by the lungs, flow everywhere to our trillions of cells, and we breathe out again. And this is how life renews itself. Breath is ongoing energy exchange and a revival. It's also food. Breath is, interestingly, it's our primary food. That's why we breathe 20,000 times a day. And so breath is one of the ways that life renews and repairs itself. Rhythm, all forms of rhythm are ways that life repairs itself. So rhythm and flow. So we can pay attention to the sensations of rhythm and flow, to the music of rhythm and flow, and we can pay attention to the energies, the kundalini, the lightful energies tingling everywhere in the body. We can attend to the energy intelligence centers in the body and above the body called the chakras. And there's many. There's besides the chakras along the spine, there's chakras above, below the shoulders, the nipples, the knees, the soles of the feet. We can attend to the relationship of these energy intelligence and sensation centers throughout the body. So when we realize, oh, meditation is simply allowing ourselves to explore, what do I love? What thrills me? What energizes me? What fills me up with gusto, with enthusiasm about the life force itself, about being embodied, such that after meditation, I'm just full of pizzazz. I'm full of love and energized to go do whatever my thing is in the world. This has always been the purpose of meditation, is to support and tune us to go for it, whatever that is. And that's how you know that you're doing a practice that goes with your particular nature, is that after meditation, and there's these in yoga, there's these four purposes of practice. It's freedom, moksha, love, kama, love in all its forms, sensual pleasure, also just the erotic pleasure of a beautiful day or looking at flowers or animals or putting lotion on your body in the morning, and love in all of its forms, and ability to work, artha, and honor, the ability to contribute to the greater good of humanity. So the purpose of yoga or of the meditation practice is to support us in fulfilling these purposes so that we have a great life. And moment to moment, whenever a person attends to what's happening, there's a flow of desire, sometimes many per second. We'll hear helpful hints from all of the chakras. They're always singing with helpful energies. They're always offering, well, what about this and what about that? And so we're always in the situation of like sorting, listening and sorting to all the forms of intelligence. We have many forms of intelligence that's always singing to us. There's survival intelligence. You have gut feelings. You have like instinctive intelligence. You have sexual or erotic intelligence. You have the intelligence to assert the self for personal power. There's relational intelligence, the intelligence of adoring, of giving and receiving love. And there's all those impulses to reach out and embrace. There's a universe of nuance in emotional intelligence. There's verbal intelligence, the ability to speak, to name, to articulate a desire or an observation or an expression. There's intuitive intelligence and spiritual perception. There's global ecological intelligence. So we have all these forms of intelligence. And in a given moment, we're sitting there meditating in the morning, wondering, like, do I try apply for a new job? What about moving? What about my friend? What about this business I'm running? And this is why it's a great challenge to be an individual. We need all the help we can get. And so when we're meditating, what the sacred function is that we're making ourselves available to think outside the box. Our habitual mode of thinking, which we all know, we have a standard way of doing things. And when we meditate in a way that's healthy and embodied, we're open to all the instinctive wisdom from different channels and circuits in the body. And so they come whispering, well, what about, like, I could help you with this. And so that's what makes meditation thrilling. And when you get this, when you get what I just said, that simple observation, then meditation becomes as entertaining as the movies that you love because it's your adventure. Like, how do I hook up with that person? Or what do I do about my business? Or what about that job? Do I change jobs or do I ask for a raise or do I accept that promotion or do I say, no, I'm going to stay here? We are all faced with these hair raising challenges. Do I have a child? Do I have another child? We're all making these hair raising decisions and we need access to all of our best intelligence. And what goes on in meditation is similar in a way to what goes on in our night sleep. At night, nature knocks us out. We go what's called unconscious so that we can't resist the healing process. And nature puts us into a state of relaxation and restfulness, and then runs all these maintenance and repair routines on the body just for hours and hours. Nature, there's flushing the brain and repairing the muscles and the nerves. And then we dream and we dream many times a night, usually in cycles of 90 to 120 minutes, as I recall. And so we'll do light sleep, deep sleep, dreaming, light sleep, deep sleep, dreaming. And in dreaming, the brain, meaning you, it's a movie, directs it, acts in it, lights it, is also the property manager. You're the background, you're the space in which the dream is occurring. You're all the characters, you're the plot, and you're witnessing it. And the brain needs to do this just to figure out what the hell am I doing? What's going on in my life? What is the plot structure? And what am I leaving out? So the body does this pulsation between deep rest and dreaming whenever you give it a chance. Now, here's a wild bit of scientific data that's been like the solid science. The researchers at Harvard Medical School, starting in 1969, found that even doing a simple meditation practice, as long as you approach it effortlessly, the body goes into a state of rest deeper than deep sleep in about 5 minutes. So it turns out that meditation is a built in instinct, an ability that the human body has to enter a deep recovery, rapid recovery mode, where in a couple minutes, physiologically, You're in rest deeper than sleep. And what bodies do when we're deeply restful and relaxed is they let go of stress. So a lot of the sensations we have in our bodies during meditation are from releasing stress. You're like, oh, God, we're just shucking off the stress. And this matches the desire that we all have. Like there are times when I need to rest, just just chill. And then I need to relax. And then I want to let go of stress, just shake off stress. Well, that's a lot of what goes on moment by moment in meditation. If you meditate every day and you have a busy life, the bodies run these repair routines whenever you give them a chance, because bodies need that. And so much of our moment to moment experience in meditation is this deep recovery, rapid recovery process where we cycle through relaxing and then letting go of stress and then sort of daydreaming. What am I so stressed about? Like what really will feel the tension. So during meditation, the body mind system just attends. It happens spontaneously. We attend to whatever tension we're in and then tune it. And because bodies know how to adapt. That's what bodies do. They know how to tune themselves. And in meditation, because we're giving ourselves access to deep relaxation, we let the body mind system reboot itself and reassess what level of excitement does each project need. Because bodies love efficiency. So that's why the term instinctive meditation suggests itself. And when meditation, we're making ourselves available to tune into all of our instincts.
One of the things we were chatting about before we started recording, it was a little bit of the rigidity, fussiness, kind of dourness of some meditators and some people on the spiritual path that you all the time run into people say, there's a right way to meditate. You have to be able to meditate in this way. And you look at them and they're not filled with joy. They're they're not living an expansive life. That if you're walking a spiritual path that's really working for you, you should be more vibrant, more relaxed, more joyful, more accepting of the world, more integrated, more seeing the world as a magical place, and to not take things so seriously, and to just really be an example of divine bliss, joy, effervescence in how you speak, in your vibe, in your aura, your demeanor, all of that. And just so often you see people are like, "Hmm, all right, that's you're clearly very dedicated to your spiritual path, but how much is it really drawing you into that space that is so juicy?"
Yeah. Yeah. It maybe this is always always going on. I'm not an expert in the history of Buddhism, but some people think that basically the Brahmins humorlessly chased Buddhism out of India because it started in India and there
Right.
was a lot of Buddhism. And by systematic warfare, they chased them out. So the, everywhere else outside of India had all these rich Buddhist cultures. There's like these wars. And there's a tendency of people that consider themselves religious to be overly serious and to have this grim approach. So it seems like a lot of people who say that they're meditating, they don't know this. But what they're doing is they're sitting in church trying to be good, trying to look religious. They're trying to look prayerful. They do a lot of there's a lot of frowning. Yeah, that as if that's discipline. It's like they're just sitting in church. Much of my life, the last 56 years, is just listening to meditators talk and what are they experiencing and what's working for them and what doesn't work. And just about everybody I know works so hard. They have such long to-do lists, and, like, we all suffer because we never get the whole list done every day, and yet we have things to do. We have obligations and duties and bucket list things that we wanna do. So everybody I know works so hard, and the last thing people need meditation to be is just more hard work. Like, that's the last thing that people need. If, like, you go to the gym, clearly. So the physiology, like, you work your muscles, whatever it is, whether it's running or the gym or swimming or dancing, you work your muscles. And then when you sleep at night, your body rebuilds get stronger. Working out breaks down the muscle tissue, and bodies are always adapting. So when our muscles grow, or we're conditioned, if we don't grow muscle, we just get stronger and have more endurance. That's adaptation. The body is adapting to whatever challenges we put it to, because bodies are always adapting. And much of what we experience during meditation is the body mind system adapting to whatever our challenges are. So that's why meditation, if you're doing it properly, will feel like a bit of a party, celebration, sleep, therapy, a massage, sex, dancing, putting on your favorite music and just dissolving into it, wandering in nature, a conversation with a good friend, all of that. It feels like that. And it might change every few seconds. But this is what makes meditation fulfilling and healthy. And that's actually what naturally happens if we approach meditation in a way that's just honest and honoring how hard we work. Right? The last thing we need is more hard work. It would be like, say, the principle of working out and getting stronger, as if the trainer has you working the same muscle group all day long every day, and then says, okay, your therapy is to work the same muscle group all night long. You never have any recovery time. It's a fundamental misunderstanding. And in a way, it's understandable because historically, until recently, almost all meditation teachers were some kind of renunciates or spiritual people living, they have some kind of robes, some kind of vows. And if we were to search the whole world, who has the least understanding of what it is to be just a regular person? Who is the most clueless about, say, who a Western woman is or what natural sexuality is? It would be it would be a male from Asia. It would be like asking a cat what it's like to be a dog, or asking a dolphin to teach horses how to be a horse. It's different animals. And so we've received this wealth of teachings. It's incredible. There's just millions of meditation texts and of these ancient texts. There's like millions of untranslated Sanskrit texts. And we've received this wealth of just thousands and thousands of different meditation techniques. But the kind of common sense knowledge of which technique goes for which person, we have to invent for ourselves. Yeah. It's kind of like we've inherited 10,000 bottles of herbs, but they're not labeled. So you have to taste and figure out what they do.
Yeah, it's something I reflect on that. I spent 7 years living in an ashram on a guru for almost a decade. And in all that time, I never once heard the idea of joy being a spiritual principle. That somehow experiencing joy in your life, living a joyful life, is part of our spiritual path. And now that's shocking to me because it took me a while to start to even think about it, but to realize, like, why are we in physical incarnation? Why are we here? For the joy of being alive, for the joy of getting to experience this world. And I love that you bring up, there is, as we've discussed, two paths. There's the renunciation path, and then there's the path of being in the world. And how, as you said, historically, most of the meditation techniques, most of the spiritual things coming from India and Tibet and Japan are coming from renunciate traditions. And how that doesn't really work if you're going to live in the modern world in a consumerist capitalist society and have a job and have a family and have sex and go to work. Like, that doesn't work in this context. Not to say it's not a valid path, but does it work for you?
Yeah, and we do renunciation in different ways. Like if you know any moms with a couple of kids, I don't think it's possible to be more of a renunciate or a servant than a mom with a baby, maybe a year old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Like I have 3 sisters, they all have kids, and I know lots of people with kids. Like the moms that I know, their first thought, they roll out of bed in the morning, their first thought was like, how are my kids and maybe the dog? How are all the people that they love? And they spend all day just pouring out love and care for the bodies of all these other beings. And that's their joy. Like they'll go to the bathroom and the kids, the baby and the dog or cat will sit right outside the door. Like they to have even a minute just to pee and breathe, they have to seal themselves away. And everybody's just sitting right outside the door. And the whole day is given in service. And if you know these women, they'll take a minute to put on some makeup and then try to get some sleep. Every cell of their body is given in service. And so that's actually a kind of renunciation by devotion in that every moment is an outpouring of love. And this is just normal moms with a bunch of kids, like 3 kids and a dog. So, and people that work to support their family, people that start businesses and on all kinds of professions, people give themselves completely. I know a lot of doctors and nurses, and they give themselves completely to their profession, which took years and years and years of training. And they function like 12-hour shifts, giving incredible attention. They barely have time to pee or eat. And then they have trouble getting back into their bodies because they're given themselves so totally. So people do renunciation without making a big deal out of it. When they give themselves to their task, to their passion, they don't call it renunciation, but they give themselves totally. So that needs to be respected. Like ordinary people, just regular people do the most incredible things. Like I love watching these marathon races and endurance races and being in awe of the people that do that, put on a backpack and run for 5 days through the jungle or whatever. I love seeing that. But to me, regular people do that every day, just in their own way. And so meditation is a natural instinct to dive into the life force and be refreshed. And it's interesting. It's harder to teach meditation now in a way than it was in the 70s. In the 70s, I could just say meditation is effortless. Here's how. And people would just, okay, let's go. I'd give them a week of training, and a year later, half of the people would still be meditating every day. Like they got that. They're expert and they can meditate anywhere. And now, though, it's like people have so much noise in their head. They'll they have to fight about it. They have to unlearn the stuff that they've learned. Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. There's like Buddha gave this talk one day. He said, "Monks, I've given you 84,000 different Dharma doors for all the different kinds of people there are." And you can look it up. It's his famous sermon. And so it's like we've received thousands of these different techniques. And the challenge that we each face is that for each of us on a given day, we might need 2 or 3 of these practices that they really suit us. It's food for us. And some of the others would be quite toxic. So that's the challenge we each face.
It's such a spiritual journey for each of us to go into that process of uncovering what are we drawn to and what serves us well, because I think we all hear so many stories throughout our life, from our parents to guidance counselors to friends, bosses saying, you're this kind of person. You need to behave in this kind of way. This is what is good. This is what is bad. This is how you should act in the world. And I think that process of uncovering and rewilding and rediscovering who you really are without those constraints and what serves you, what draws you into a state of internal connection, what draws you into a state of bliss, what draws you into a state of meditation. Like that's a big process for a lot of people, most of us, I would guess, because we're so disconnected from what is instinctive within us.
It is. It's always a big process. And I don't think it ends. I think
Mm,
we can sometimes assemble ourselves in a way that works for a few years, a couple of years, 10 years, 20 years, and then we have to reinvent ourselves. It happens.
yeah,
But you've been through this.
yeah, yeah.
And like for me, like today, I knew how to meditate when I got up. I just, I just felt that beautiful. It was like listening to music when I sat down this morning. It just this tuning. It is like music was playing, tuning me, and it felt like getting a massage from the goddess and sort of being loved by the elements. But much of the time, the last year, when I'll get up in the morning, it's like, how do I meditate? Like, what works for me? And I have to kind of root around, like, what works? I have to kind of. It's like when you're trying to figure out what to eat. You look in the refrigerator, nothing looks good. You look in the
Well,
look in the cabinet, like, what do I want to eat? And a lot of times the last year, I was like, well, what do I want to do? I have to reinvent meditation. And then there were many years in the 70s and 80s and 90s when I would just feel it's morning or it's like before dinner, it's sunset, and just tune into this beauty and just there's like music playing, mantras singing themselves, light show, massage, delight, erotic pleasure. And then I changed. I outgrew that. And so, like, there's times even, so I've been meditating 56 years or something like that since whatever it is, since 1968. And I go through cycles where I'll have a groove where I'm just like, yeah, I know how to meditate. I'm so zen. Like a surfer. When surfers step off their board, they're just like, yeah. And other times when I'm just completely perplexed, like, how do I meditate for the person I am today? And
yeah.
and I'm faced with an incredible challenge. And so, I'll go through, I'll look through the Radiance Sutras and I'll go, I see this completely anew. Like, I never saw that before. Yeah, of course. And I'll figure out, something eventually figure it out. So I'll go through cycle of being completely perplexed. Like, how do I meditate? Like nothing seems to really work and I'm not like at home in myself. And I have to invent the new path. I have to like hang out with the bewilderment and the perplexity and then like let kind of new chakras come online. The chakras, they're not the decals. They're not just a little superficial thing stuck on your body like a tattoo. It's a symbol of energies and forms of intelligence flowing through us and around us and activating these amazing nerve plexi. It's like we have many brains. And so we get reconfigured. And it's very similar training like what dancers go through. Because there's like if working out in a gym might train us to a certain kind of simple movement, and yeah, we'll build muscle. But there's complex natural movements, like what people do when say they're just moving in the outdoors. If you're climbing, like people who climb those, just climb up rock faces, dancers, body surfers, there's a total integration of the whole muscle network, like natural spontaneous movements. So when we only do one kind of meditation, after years, we might fall into a pattern that's limiting some of our intelligence. And so then our own evolutionary impulse will call us to break out.
I love you saying how important it is because I think we all know or we've all experienced ourselves for other people where they're given, let's say, a mantra and someone says, oh, this is your secret mantra. Don't tell anyone what this mantra is. Now just do this mantra every day for the rest of your life. And how people come to me all the time and say, well, I try doing meditation, but I fall off after a couple months. And it's like, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, I have this one practice that I do, and that's how you meditate. And it's like, well, no wonder you fall off.
Yeah. And those practices are beautiful. And it's also
Yeah.
beautiful when they fall off. In the 70s, I made a big enterprise of interviewing people who quit meditation, who got frustrated and quit. And a lot of people were coming to me. I had a whole private practice. People were being referred to me by different chiropractors and doctors. And so I was seeing these people, and what I was doing at the time was I would just listen for 2 hours. Like, when did you start meditating? What practices did you do? What cravings? What was your desire? What happened day by day? I would just listen. And when they ran out of words, I'd ask, and then what happened? And the impression I got was that when people would quit meditating or leave the guru, they were always right. There was only one case in which I felt like, nah, that go ahead and work it out with your guru. If that's your guru. There's only one, maybe out of 100. In every case, after listening to people for these 2-hour sessions, and sometimes several of them, we both had the sense like, no, it was time to move on. The people were right to quit. And what we discovered is that the practice they were doing that they thought was whatever the technique is of whatever form of Hinduism, yoga, tantra, Buddhism, when translated into their internal system, wasn't healthy.
No, something I reflect on. As a kid, I got thrown out from my relationship without my consent. But in hindsight, I look back for about a year and a half before that happened, and I started to see signs within myself of like, is this time for me to go? Like, I'm not needing this in the way that other people are. And also in hindsight, for myself anyway, realizing how detrimental it was for my development at that point to give someone else all my power. To say, I understand the value of learning surrender. I understand the value of learning simple relationship. And I do think that there is a lot of challenges that come with the idea of giving somebody else your power. And so for me, getting thrown out and leaving that tradition and having to reclaim that for myself was so critical for my continued development. And then the freedom to start exploring different techniques and different practices and different ways of approaching my spirituality that I wasn't given permission to within that framework.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I've been through that same thing in maybe three different scenarios where it seems like the guru type people that just always abuse power and they maybe don't know it that they're but they it's yeah, I've been through that and I still shudder at the damage the way it's made me really devoted to training the opposite. Like I'm always from the very beginning training people to trust their instincts. One thing I discovered after years of listening is that people are good at making up their own mantras. Many people can actually almost hear the mantra that I was going to give them.
Mm.
And so when I'll give a mantra, like I might to wait and get them to say it first and then shape it and then say, well, do you hear like an A or an E sound? What's how many syllables do you want it to be? And I'll let them feel in and then just stumble around and experiment and find what feels right to them. And when I'll be articulating a principle, like in a group or one to one, I'll say something that, like some form of the classical a revelation, the classical tantric revelation about that we're all manifestations of prana shakti, that a body is trillions of tiny pulsations of prana shakti. I'll say something in that realm. And then I'll just say, well, how would you put it? And I think maybe you could put it better than me. Like I'm struggling for words here to articulate this principle. So I'll say it one way, and then I'll say, how would you say that? And people actually do say it, but better than me. It'll be fresh. And so in classes, I create these contexts where people well, for example, we'll start with the Radiant Sutras and let people improvise. And I love listening to other people read the text and then even improvise. And for years, these groups of musicians would tour and put on improv concerts with the Radiant Sutras, where they'd invite anybody to come up and read a verse, and then they would make up music to it, and then the whole crowd would start
Right.
chanting it. And we all experience that just regular people, often who've never spoken in public before, never been at a microphone, and sometimes never even seen the sutras before, would channel the most hair-raising articulation of that. of that sutra. We experience this for years. It's miraculous. Just regular people can perceive these practices and transmit their path of discovery, their love of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, just regular people.
We started this interview with me reading one of the sutras, and I'm going to read another one now, too. Sutra 46. At the moment of orgasm, the truth is illuminated, the one everyone longs for. Lovemaking is riding the currents of excitation into revelation. Two rivers flow together, the body becomes quivering. No inside, no outside, only the delight of union. The mind releases itself into divine energy, and the body knows where it came from. This is reality, and it is always here. Everyone craves the source, and it is always everywhere. I love this. I remember years and years ago first encountering the Sanskrit term Turiya described as one of the states of consciousness. So it's a meditative state, the state of samadhi. And then years later, realizing that it also describes the state of orgasm. And I thought it was so strange that that had never been articulated to me previously. But we see this in our culture, how there is a lot of spiritual and definitely a lot of religious people who view sex and our bodies as dirty, sinful, wrong, not spiritual. And I think a big part of my own spiritual journey, and certainly what I share here on this YouTube channel, is this idea that those things are gateways to our higher self. But we look at like how Shiva lingams, the oldest Shiva lingams that we see that go back 1,000 years, were carved into the shapes of penises. But you talk to a lot of modern Hindus nowadays, and they'll get very offended and suggest that Shiva lingam is a penis. Recently excavated, going all the way back to 11,000 BC, we look at places like Göbekli Tepe, which is this huge, intentionally buried religious complex with these beautiful, beautiful carvings that look modern. You see statues of people masturbating as part of a spiritual practice. I would love if you just talk about this a little bit, because I've had people who see my perspectives and say, that's too fringe, that's too out there. But I feel like this has always been a part of spirituality, is saying the whole embodied experience of being human is spiritual. Any thoughts to share on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just obvious. I mean, remember that like so-called spiritual people would be the last ones to ask about anything to do with being in a body or sexuality. It's like everybody knows that reproduction, we wouldn't be here if there weren't sex. That's how nature makes strong bodies by mix. There's chromosomes and they mix up and remix. And so nature built men's bodies to produce how many sperm per minute? I think the average male testicles might be sizzling, creating a couple hundred sperm per second. You can look it up, the number. It's phenomenal. Nature, it built male bodies to just shimmer, it did vibrate like champagne, creating thousands or millions of sperm per second. So it's just a fizz of creativity. And then one out of billions of these will merge with an egg and create another human being. But this is nature's creativity always going to evolve strong bodies. And the orgasm can be so ecstatic and joyous, like a communion with God. So under good situations, the origin of our bodies is a flash of complete divine joy. The male and female coming together, and then the egg and the sperm coming together. It's just an ecstatic surge of joy, of yay, let's take on a form. Our bodies are built to love lovemaking. And if we're not creating babies, the sexual energy is creating subtle bodies. So feeling the tingle, that sweet magnetism of sexual energy, if it's not just building a relationship with another person that would lead to having babies, it builds the subtle bodies. So the same sexual energy, if you think about sex, it's a willingness to touch for bodies to come into contact, loving contact. You think about the urge to sex, it's intimacy and really mixing up energies with another body. And the same energy, that same magnetic energy also wants to link up, get the chakras to hook up with each other. Because it's
Mhm.
quite an adventure to have all the forms of intelligence permeating the body from the base of the spine to the top of the head up to get them to hook up, to speak, to flow. And that's an erotic flow, the flow of prana, the flow of energy, of magnetism, of power in the body. It feels erotic. And the erotic is a delicate, it's an adoration of form, of that meditation for people who, especially anybody healthy, anybody really, I would have said anybody under 50, I'd have to went, well, 60, 70, no, 80, maybe. It's, there's an erotic flow in meditation that feels like lovemaking. That's lovemaking, you say, of body and soul.
Yeah.
And it's quite intricate. The alignment of energies through the chakras, we could say, is quite an art form and a dance. There's all kinds of inner moves that we make. And there's a skill set to it that's like dancing or working out or vocal training or yoga. Like if you've ever done yoga asana, it's quite entering a pose and then
Mhm.
being in it and then transitioning. Well, that's a teaching for what we do inside of ourselves. We're always meeting energies, figuring out what they want, merging, how to roll with it, how to direct it and steer it, combine it with other energies and let it flow, how to speak it, move with it, articulate it, express it. So even if we're not with another person, there's a lot of sex to have between the chakras, between parts of the body, between body and soul, between heart and mind and levels. So masturbation is part of that, just getting to know what you want. One of the really simple yoga practices in asana is just blessing the body, touching every part of the body. And just check it out when before you get out of the shower next time. Just rub your hands over everywhere on your body and just feel just the magic of being in a body. Feel the electricity flowing and like instead of toweling off, just sweep the water off. And then when you put lotion on, feel just the magic of skin. Get to know your own skin.
Yeah.
In order to be a good lover, you have to have made love to yourself a lot. And if meditation, just your general meditation every day, doesn't have quality of sometimes masturbating and sometimes having somebody make exquisite love to you, like being held, being touched, being loved, then you're not really meditating. You're you're blocking. You're practicing something mildly harmful. Like when we sleep, nature floods the genitals with blood, to make sure they're healthy and good to go. So even babies get erections, and even baby girls, the clitorises get engorged. Nature, when we are resting and in recovery mode, nature just runs sexual energy through the body just to keep everything tuned up. And the same with meditation. And in a way, like every teenager knows this. It's kind of like obvious, except to spiritual people who have so many problems with naturalness.
I love how you just say that it's people having issues with naturalness. I really do see that, and it's in so many traditions, in so many different religions and practitioners, as this idea of trying to become something other than me. How we transcend our humanness, escape this planet, escape. Because I believe that too, right? How to reach enlightenment, how to transcend my human nature to become something. And I've just gotten to this point of saying, like, oh no, have you missed it? Have you missed that the goal is to be thoroughly human? What a gift it is to have these bodies, to be in this world, to live this life. The goal
Yeah.
is not to get out of it. The goal is to be thoroughly here and see the immense sanctity and magic in this life. So many people keep feeling like they have to escape their human form, and just I, I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. That escapism. And my attitude is God bless them. That that's fine for them. Like I saw some Mormon missionaries the other day. It's like, God bless them, good for you. It's just that saying that meditation is escapism when it's so clearly not. It's it's just not true. There are out of the 84,000 different practices that Buddha gave, some of them are escapism. Like one of the books back here, a translation of the Yoga Sutras, it was done by a guy who one of these fabulous people from India. And I think he died, maybe he was born in the late 1800s. And anyway, he'd been from a wealthy family. He gave it all up. He became a Swami, and he translated the Yoga Sutra. And then he had his disciples brick him into a cave and pass food through a little opening. And he just stayed in there for years until he died or went to Mahasamadhi. That was just that was just what he wanted to do. Like, it's like being an astronaut. Just leave the body and as soon as possible and go into space. Like, more power to anybody that wants to do that. But that's not meditation.
Well, and the question that comes up for me is, if we view part of our reasons for being here as the evolution of our spirit, spiritual evolution comes through lessons we learn, the encounters we have, the experiences we need to go through, and the growth we experience. I feel like there's sometimes an element of spiritual bypassing where it's like, I don't want to learn these lessons, so let me escape. I'd rather not deal with the difficulties and the muck and the mud and the challenges that. And so that's my thing. It's like, well, what is it you're avoiding? Is there something you're running from? And is that part of your reason for being here, is to encounter that thing? And are you opting out? But as you said, bless them all.
Yeah, well, it's like in working out. Like, people in gyms get injured a lot, and so in ordinary working out, you'll pump iron or you'll do leg day, and then you have an off day and you recover. Sometimes we'll overuse our tissues or nerves or get burnt out either mentally, emotionally, or physically, and we not mean a prolonged time of recovery. And so the spiritual bypassing can serve as recovery time. Like, I had to quit whatever that was. I wasn't coping with it, or I got injured. Then I'm going to go do this other thing. I'm going to escape and then come back. So it's like in sports or war. Sometimes there's a strategic retreat, and then there's a call to re-enter. So it can serve a higher good or a evolutionary good.
Beautifully said. Thank you for giving me that perspective.
Yeah, and like, we never know what life may have been getting ready to throw at somebody when they join an ashram. Like, those years, who knows what they avoided, bad marriage or whatever. It's when we're dealing with individual human beings, and the more we listen, it's the more we're in awe just at the challenges that everybody faces. And we each do, like, finding what meditation works for us is such an adventure. The fact that this is very common. Someone might meditate and be thriving for a couple of years and just grooving with the practice. And then one day it starts to feel like, I got to move on. And it's so challenging. Like, I remember this guy that had been in a part of this fantastic group. There was like 14 other men. They were sitting cross-legged. They're doing some kind of something like Vipassana, or there's the teacher is all like, an authority, and they're all friends. And he just started getting restless, like sensing somehow this isn't for me. And went and talked to the teacher, and the teacher said, no, you're just resisting. Just keep going. He didn't really listen to him. He dismissed the thing. That's just resistance.
That's a word that comes up a lot. I heard that a lot too. Oh, you're just experiencing resistance.
Yeah. And And he would just so bothered, and the feeling didn't go away that this is stifling. This is like, it's been great, but it's time to do something different. He didn't know what call he was answering. He just felt this call. And so he came to see me, and imagine like somebody from a respectable, official type of group up in the Bay Area in San Francisco Bay, where there's like all that spiritual authority to come to see this. I was 25 at the time. So I've been teaching meditation for 6 years, but it's like I looked like a California surfer. And I probably just was wearing board shorts and a t-shirt, kind of like you. I know. And the the desperation of someone to go see this kid at the beach in LA who has a reputation that he just go see Lorin. He listens to people. He'll listen to you for hours and help you sort yourself out. So that was the reputation I had. So all these people would come. So I was listening to this guy. So I was like 25, he's like 32. And so I listened to him for hours. And then so we're sitting there in the peacefulness. Because when people have finally said everything and they've just been heard, they just feel heard and they get to hear themselves. I said, well, what do you want to do? What do you feel called to do? And he goes, well, I have this image of dancing. I just see, I just see dancing. And at the time in 1975, like the spiritual dancing, it wasn't on the tip of everybody's tongue. He hadn't heard of it. He didn't know there was such a thing. I said, well, I know spiritual groups are really working dance as a meditation. And so he went and he found such a group and just would go twice a week. And it was just the transformation was incredible because he'd been sitting for a couple of years. So he had the ability to be in his body, to be in kinesthesia. And when he started dancing, the joy was incredible. The liberation. He was in ecstasy dancing, and he carried that attentiveness, what you could call mindfulness, which is sort of a creepy term. Bodyfulness would be better term than mindfulness, heartfulness, sensefulness. He was completely present in the midst of wild movement and peaceful movement. And then he met this woman. He met a woman there, and then they had at least one child. They lost track of them. But that was his calling. And it was so beautiful to perceive. But I really felt like the despair because when he had that disagreement with the teacher, he lost his guru, which was heartbreaking. He lost his circle of friends. Like they didn't speak to him. You fell out with the guru. Like you defied the guru. You're like a bad influence. So he lost all of his friends and he lost his practice. So he had a triple divorce.
In there.
A triple divorce. And then he found this whole other way. And in 1975 or 76, the idea that dancing meditation, it wasn't as well known. Now there's many fantastic groups all around the world where you can do like dance church or 5 rhythms and fumbling towards ecstasy. Yeah, it's a privilege. I consider it like a great honor that I've been able to listen to people over the years and on their adventure and finding what is my meditation practice because it can be such a quest because but to return to sex, I mean, for most of us, sexuality, the electricity in the sexual centers and that can flow everywhere in the body and many levels is an intrinsic part of being healthy in meditation. So it's strange that it's this secret that meditation can feel like a party. Like I said at the beginning, it's in a half an hour of meditation. Say you come home from work and you want to meditate before dinner, that it's a massage, that it feels like putting on headphones and listening to music, that you fall asleep, it's a dream, that you're talking to a therapist or a coach, that your whole body tingles with erotic pleasure. Then you go into complete silence. And then you're fanatically thinking about your to-do list, just sorting what about that. Meditation for people with busy lives feels like that. And if you welcome the dynamic variety of your inner experience, meditation just becomes this refreshing thing that you always do, that just always works. It's so obvious in a way that meditation would be that way. And it's perplexing how that simple truth is always getting lost.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom, Lorin. It is such a joy and a pleasure to hear your thoughts and perspectives and feel your energy in space with you. Well, Lorin, I can't thank you enough. This is such a joy and such a delight. I'm going to drop links to all of your socials in the video description, so people please go check them out. And if people want to work with you directly, what are the best ways for them to go about that?
Just Lorin at meditation.dev. Just shoot an email or go to Radiance Sutras. Just look up Radiance Sutras and you'll be led to radiancesutras.com. And let's Kaelan, I'm here. Let's be friends. I want to see you in person someday.
Well, absolutely. I'm going to manifest that because, yes, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, great.